Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. So, I just wanted to talk today about the Ossiarch Bonereapers and their new tome. So now, I'm not going to go over every little thing in the book, and I'm not really going to go over like unit stats too much, because at this point in time, that's pretty much been covered by so many people at this point. I don't really want to bore anyone watching, and on top of this right here, I really don't really see what else I can really say, because pretty much that's everything that's been said about the book unit-wise, I pretty much agree with, and I'm pretty sure you would too. So I just want to give my overall opinion on the tome, and I realize this is a little late, but I've just been so busy lately. I can't, and I can barely keep up myself with all the release schedule. This is why it's always a blessing and a curse when it comes to like constant release schedule, because you really gotta like hoof it to keep up with it. So anyway, I'm just going to go over everything right now. So, the new tome overall. Well, overall, I'd say that the book is actually pretty good. Like, it's finally, one of the things I really loved more than anything, it's finally playing the same game as everyone else. That whole relentless discipline point thing with that, like, that holdover from second edition, it's gone now. Like, yeah, like, what was so cool in second edition was basically, like, one giant handicap throughout all of third. Like, now, I can appreciate what they were doing with it, and let's be honest here. The Ossiarch Bonereapers, I could be said, they took one for the team, as they were pretty much the blueprint for how armies went forward into third edition. But I just kind of wish they moved forward at the same time as everyone else. So, yes, they're finally using command abilities. They're finally using command points. No more of that relentless discipline stuff. That's gone. So that honestly, that alone actually makes this a winner in my book, because I hated the like, relentless discipline points in third edition. It was just stupid, in my opinion. I still can't believe they didn't FAQ that away. Anyway, I'm not going to go on a rant. This is not going to turn to a rant. Other things I really liked is all the important playstyles of the book are still there. Like, you can still go mass infantry of Mortrick Guard, make them, like, buff them, make until they're basically indestructible, good elite units, good ranged when you have it, and really, really good force multipliers in the book. Like, now, however, that being said, there are some definite change-ups in the book, too, because it would have to be in order to even justify getting a new tome. But overall, even though there are some change-ups, I think anyone who's played this book long enough will probably still know what they're doing with every single unit, because no unit has really changed from its basic concept, but some rules and some synergies definitely have. So, what I like? Well, overall, there's some really good stuff in here. So basically, overall, it's the same strengths as the previous book. Like, as I mentioned, the army still functions as a super tanky, super efficient, highly tactical force. Like, this army, as before, it's basically designed to encourage you to think in your most tactical genius persona, as in that there's so many different little things, like tactical decisions you can make in any given turn, and that if you can just pull it off in the right coordination, you can just basically just stomp all over your opponent. Like, now, now, on the one hand, I realize that's not going to be to everyone's take, because to put it into perspective, this is very much a thinking man's army. Like, there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of moving pieces, and if you can get them all working in the right order, you can create some very dangerous combos. So this army will definitely reward people who prefer to be able to put all their thought and energy into coming up with tactical decisions on the fly. So I personally think that's a strength, and it definitely carried over into the new book. Another thing I really liked is much better streamlining of the rules in general. Like, one thing I definitely didn't like about the last book was that there was a lot of, I would say, characterful rules and a lot of interesting combinations, but they often resulted in just a lot more bookkeeping, and that didn't really equate to much. Like, perfect example, Catacross. Like, he had this whole listing of rules where basically he had all these retainers, and as he lost retainers, as he took wounds, his abilities went away. That, while interesting and made sense, it just kind of just resulted in a lot more bookkeeping. So what they did was he just always keeps his retainers, and he just maybe has his attack profile would change. So so in my opinion, this is a perfect example of the book in general. His abilities overall got better, they got more streamlined, and overall his hitting power got a little bit better. Like, this is basically the entire book in general, if I had to sum it up. And in my opinion, great improvement, because like I said, it's still super tactical and gives you lots of abilities, but it cuts back on a lot of the bloat. The same could be said also for other force multipliers, like, for example, Arcan. He in my opinion, just got, like, and also, he's also a perfect example of wizards in the book. The wizard, like Ossiarch Bonereaper spellcasters and force multipliers, they got better overall, they do more damage in combat, and they just, and honestly, it's just a lot more potent overall. And like, spell casting in this book got a whole lot better too. It's much more effective at debuffing. I like that too, because I don't like when I didn't really want any more ways to buff your own force too much more. Because they were approaching like maximum toughness. I wanted more, maybe debuffing the enemy, and I think they did that. Also, another thing I really liked is sub-factions got a lot more streamlined. They're basically going with the more modern style of just one ability that just applies to the whole army, and then you function and build your army around that ability. So, for example, Petrifex Elite. Hecatos Elite units get -1 to damage. That encourages you to bring a lot more elite units and less infantry like Mortrek Guard. Staliac Lords, mounted units are going to run in charge. That encourages you to bring cavalry, etc., etc. So, it's a lot easier to remember, a lot less bookkeeping, but it still encourages a lot of fluffy lists. So, personally, I'm a big fan of that, and because I honestly just think, just let everyone use all the spells and all the artifacts. Like, I do see the appeal of the other way, and some armies are still doing that. I just think that this is especially for beginners, it's just a lot easier to do. And overall too, the book is still very tanky and hitty. Yeah, like I said, I would probably say the book in general got a little less tanky and got a lot more hitty. In that there was, like, for example, like, things like save rerolls are completely gone, and there's a lot less ways and there's not quite as many ways to, like buff the armor save per se, because I think that was going into, because remember, you're using just regular command points now, so they probably they couldn't be keeping that in. But I feel the book overall got definitely more offensively powerful, because there's now a lot more ways to add +1 attack, add more rend to it, debuff your enemies a bit, like strength and saves, etc. So basically they hit a lot harder, but your enemies can do more damage to them. So that I really like too. Also, there are some very good combos with command abilities. Like, for example, Mortrek Guard are perfect examples of this, in that, so essentially, they now Bonereapers can use all the generic command abilities, and they also have their own special command abilities that they can spam as many times as they want, and individual units have their own command abilities. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how are we going to use all those command abilities in one turn? Well, Ossiarch Bonereapers are probably now one of the most command point efficient armies one of the most command point efficient armies in the game. Sorry, because they can now, because of their abilities, they can get extra command points depending on how many Ossiarch Bonereaper units they have on the turn at any given time, and certain more force multipliers like Catacross can get you even more. So there's a good chance, especially in the first round, that you would probably have anywhere between like 6 to 8 command points at any one time. And remember, the Ossiarch Bonereaper specific ones you can spam as many times as you want. So, yeah, so for example, like, you could get these guys, Mortrek Guard, you can get them up to like a 3+ save with, like all-out defense, or that you could use their special, their special command ability, where they just ignore rend modifiers, positive or negative. You can give them bludgeoned. You can add +1 to their rends. You could make them run faster. It's just so many ways to do it, and there's so many great combos in addition. Like, for example, if you want to get them even more tanky, just put them near Catacross. Get them buffed up even more. Put them by a Liege Cavalos. Get them more attacks. Or, you know, there's the old faithful, just get them near a Gothazar harvester, and he'll just rebuild them as quickly as they die. That's still there. That, you know, the Gothazar harvester and the Mortrek guard, that still exists. Don't forget though, Petrifex Elite has changed now, so, you know, remember that when you're bringing mass Mortrek guard. So like I said, overall, and also overall, having said that, I feel the sub factions overall are pretty well balanced. Like they all have their gives and uses, mostly, and I'll get to that in a second. Again, it hits the army overall. I think hits a lot harder than before. Much more damage potential, like higher damage output per attacks. A lot more rend over through the whole army on key units like Morghast, etc. Great units, more or less. Like I don't think there's any real bad choices in the book. It's all pretty solid. But let's now go on to some other stuff that I maybe thought needed improvement. So, what could be better? Well, let's see. There's a few things. Okay, so remember when I said I thought the sub-factions were pretty good overall, and I did mean that. All the sub-factions in my mind have uses. Like I love me my Crematorians, Mortis Praetorians, they're all good. Everyone loves Petrifex Elite, but I do feel that there is a certain level of, I don't know. I think some are definitely much better than others. Like, for example, I could definitely see, depending on how the meta changes up, I could definitely see, like, Null Myriads or Petrifex Elite completely just being the obvious choice. Because, once again, a lot of people are just, you know, maybe just on instinct, like, kind of, like, drifting towards Petrifex Elite again, even though they only work on Hecatos models. A lot of people, once again, are saying the Staliac Lord one is is very likely the loser of the bunch. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like especially, you know, in some very specific cases, I just feel there's an obvious choice. Like one is just obviously better, and I just kind of wish they balanced them a little bit better. Another problem I have is the command abilities can be very complex. By this I mean, I don't mean the command abilities are hard to understand. What I mean is that there's just so many of them. Like for example, so just to put into perspective, most units in this book have a command ability on them. Not just the heroes, but also the units, like the infantry and elite units themselves have their own built-in command abilities. Then you also have unique command abilities that can be used by any unit. Like I said, like Bludgeon or like Bludgeon, for example. I can't remember the others at the top of my head, but you know, there's that one that they can just they can just move 3 extra inches, and there's the other one where they can basically they can instantly just heal. Like for example, they spend a command point and heal a bunch of 3 wounds. Like between that and the heroes and the generic ones, we're looking at probably maybe like more than 15 command abilities you need to keep track of. And this can lead to definitely a lot of bookkeeping if you're not prepared for it. Now, some people would probably be fine with that, but I'm just saying, like, when you're keeping track of all those command abilities plus artifacts and spells and stacking buffs, it can get quite a bit very quickly. Another problem I have is they are still lacking dedicated range. Like I know they have their little, their catapult thing, but I really wish they had put some more ranged abilities. Like, because as some people pointed out, one of the things about this army that's supposed to be the thing about it is that they have so many different is that it's supposed to function like a legitimate army, but I just can't understand why a legitimate army doesn't have like a crossbowman squad or maybe some more ranged abilities. Like it's one area of the book that I feel is really lacking in tactical flexibility, because as good as the catapult is, and honestly I think it actually got better in the new book, I don't think it's not quite enough. It needs a cheaper ranged unit. But I digress. Another thing is, like I said, there arguably was a drop in overall durability in the army. Case in point, there's for example, I don't feel that it's gotten ludicrously more durable, but I feel the game in general has gotten more lethal. Like there's a lot more Ren stacking, there's a lot more save debuffing, there's a lot more units that can put out like 2 trillion attacks in a turn, and there are ways to buff these the Ossiarch's durability overall is just, I don't know if they've really kept up with it as much as they could have. Because remember, this is supposed to be like one of the toughest units in the game, and I don't know. I'm kind of wondering. I honestly feel like they're actually lagging behind like the units like other tanky forces like Nurgle, like Magakin of Nurgle, and heck, maybe even the Soulblight Gravelords. But whatever. And also, I feel like the army really could use some new additions, like, you know, and especially compared to some of the other poster child factions. I feel like the roster could use some expansion. Like, one hero in the new book is not enough for this. It needs like some archers. It needs some new troop types. I think it even needs maybe maybe even some new heavier cavalry. I don't know, but I think it needs more than what it's getting. So, what are some of the army combos? Well, there's quite a few. Well, basically, essentially, this army is meant to grind and is meant to grind a lot. That's basically the best way I can describe it. Like the whole point of basically of this army is I would probably say it has three main combos to go for. It can either go towards mass infantry, by that I mean Mortruck Guard, and like just big blobs of them backed up by some very numerous force multiplier heroes in the back end, and their job is just to go forward and just grind their way through everything in their path and just tank everything with probably Gothizzar harvesters and Mortisans in the back, just buffing them up and keeping them moving forward. And beyond that, there's also, and then probably the other two is probably like mass magic use. Like just get as many wizards on the field and just have them just debuffing and spamming mortal wounds at the enemy while being protected by said Mortruck Guard. And the third one, which I think is more useful in this, is Elite. One thing in the last book I would probably say is, even though it was usable, I think for example, like using like Morghasts and Gothizzars and other elite units just really wasn't a tepid option. Like in the last book, I feel like it was really infantry heavy, backed up by mass cavalry. Especially if you were playing Staliac Lords. Like elite units were usable in the last book, but they were definitely not as good as just, okay, why am I bringing these three big heavy hitters when I can just bring more infantry? Well, I feel like that's really changed in the new book. I feel like, especially in regards to now that they're the new poster childs for the Petrifax Elite, I think you can go all infantry, like all elite, and make a functioning force, and that I really do like. In addition to this, I really do also like that wizards in this book are overall much better. Like I said, they're much easier to with their casting, especially with the new heroic ability, the heroic action that just allows them if they cast a spell, just unbindable spells. They still got some of the best endless spells in the game, in my honest opinion, and their spells overall, I feel really are just very much more like they're just better overall, and they're also great for buffing units too. Like for example, Necropolis Stalkers with just a few buffs from their wizards are some of the best elite units in the game, and put these into Petrifax Elite and they're just unstoppable. And I feel that in regards to all the wizards, like even what was that? What is this thing called? Was it Mortison Ossifactor? No, Soul Mason. Yeah, Soul Mason is still one of my favorite wizards and models in the game. Probably, I just love the look of this guy. Isn't he so great? And also, one last thing to also point in mind is, never forget, even though I've been kind of ragging on their toughness, they're still one of the tankiest armies in the game right now. And like I said, you can either go like mass Mortruck Guard backed up by harvesters, or in the new book, I'm kind of of the idea that a mass Necropolis Stalkers in Petrifax Elite and buffed up by units such as like Catacross or Arcan, or even just enough Mortison spellcasters, is just going to be one of the tankiest things you can hit. So now, will it be enough to go forward with inevitable new releases and changing meta? Well, we'll see. But right now, I think they're high in the running for tankiest in the game. So overall, do I think this army is pretty good? Overall, yes. The book definitely is much better than it was before. It's overall, I like the book a lot better now than it was last edition, because I really fell out of love with them in the change up from second to third edition. I think they did a good job playing to the army's strengths and changing them up enough without alienating what made them fun to begin with. My only issue, like again, is that I feel like I don't know if they're quite tanky enough moving forward to keep up with the greater lethality of the game in recent edition, like in recent tome releases. Also, I do feel maybe they're getting, even though like they may have streamlined some things, I worry if they maybe just made up with that by making their intrinsic allegiance abilities more complex. So I don't know if it's kind of like just, two steps forward, one step back in that regard. But and I do feel that the army needs more units to fill it out more. But overall, I still think it's a real good glow up, and they're perfectly competitive as is. So I hope if you have Ossiarch Bonereapers yourself, I hope you're enjoying them, and I wish you the best of luck with them, because I really hope they do well. Well, anyway, thanks for coming by, and have a good day.